millions of dollars we send, no matter how many biolabs we have there, no matter how many threats, CIA officers we send over there to do the targeting of the drones, still there. And they're not leaving. So what does that leave you with? Well, again, I would refer you to not the smartest foreign policy strategist we have, but certainly the most cable-friendly, Lindsey Graham. Watch this.
How does this end? Somebody in Russia has to step up to the plate. Is there Brutus in Russia? Is there a more successful Colonel Stauffenberg in the Russian military? The only way this ends, my friend, is for somebody in Russia to take this guy out. You would be doing your country a great service and the world a great service. I'm hoping somebody in Russia will understand that he's destroying Russia and you need to take this guy out by any means possible. Yeah, I hope he'll be taken out one way or the other. I don't care how they take him out. I don't care if we send him to The Hague and try him. I just want him to go. Yes, I'm on record. Please understand, Senator Lindsey Graham, and if John McCain were here, he'd be saying the same thing, I think. It's time for him to go. He's a war criminal. I wish somebody had taken Hitler out in the 30s.
Live by the sword, die by the sword. Do you really want to call for the extrajudicial murder of another head of state? Is that a precedent you want to live with? Probably not, actually. Probably not. And if you're a country that believes in the rule of law, pretty shocking thing, really, for a lawmaker to say, well, just assassinate him. It's just a tool of foreign policy. No, we're not Israel. We don't conduct foreign policy through assassination, actually. We shouldn't. Apparently now we do. Is that okay with people? You don't like someone, so you just kill them? If those are the rules, we will have to live with those rules. And you don't need a particularly powerful imagination to envision how that ends, and not well at all.
Trust. And let's give us be absolutely sure. We hope that he is sincere, but we do not trust American policies, and to a certain extent, his proposals look like a honey trap, because nothing happens. Continue the war. Not talking about peace. I mean, referring to who knows whom, Zelensky or other pygmies in Europe who are blocking it. And it seems that this war is continuing, and maybe the United States in the end do not want to finish this war. So then we'll have to come back to the solution, which I have mentioned several times. And that is of starting to punish our European enemies with an understanding, hopefully, that the United States would, and knowing that they would refrain from participating in a nuclear war in Europe.
I think it's important for American policymakers and the American citizenry, the country, to understand the Russian perspective, and I'm grateful that you gave it to us, Mr. Karaganov. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. For me too. Thanks very much for watching. We will see you next Wednesday.
Hostility of European elites and their willingness to fuel warfare on the European subcontinent. But let's give Trump a chance. Although I am not sure whether he or we would succeed under circumstances. You know the internal situation in the United States better. And also, by the way, we could not rely, with all our respect to your president, on him. He has a country behind him which is deeply divided. He has a huge opposition. And then he's also playing full games And so I don't think, I hope we could arrange something. But we are watching very carefully the fact that presidential administration has abducted the leader of a big country. We are watching very carefully that American Marines are acting like pirates on high seas, seizing tankers, wearing Russian flags, Russian banners. If that continues, we'll have to go back to rough deterrence. But we would like to have, if not cordial, but a good relationship with the United States and with other two great countries in the world. But we'll see whether he could deliver. I think he wants to deliver, but whether he's able is a big question. So we keep our fingers.
As a war, a civilizational war between Russia and Europe, what role does the United States, our administration, our president, play in ending it? What can President Trump do to end the war?
Well, I mean, Americans were very crucial in starting this war because the whole problem started in early 2000s when American administration started to peddle to prop up the European issue because they were afraid of the possibility of building a continental alliance between Russia and Germany. So, in a way, Americans are also have been a source of the problem. As to the Trump administration offer, I didn't like the offer which Mr. Trump offered because it doesn't solve the real problem. And the real problem is European hostility, European aggression. But for the time being, we should use this opportunity, if possible. And then, of course, we all know that President Trump is curtailed in his internal affairs. And also, now we see that his offers are diluted and by all kind of efforts from within and by his quote-unquote allies. But we could try for a while with his offer. Maybe eventually we would end up with a solution of the problem. And that is solution of the problem is, of course, as I've said, is Europe. However, I do not foresee that, unfortunately, that possibility. So even if we stop this war, we should be prepared when the war resumes to do away with the source of this war. And that is
Western sanctions had on Russia. Do you believe sanctions hurt Russia or helped it?
Oh, yes. I mean, we invited, I have been calling for a confrontation with the West long before we stopping the expansion of NATO, etc., long before we decided. Of course, economically wise, they hurt, but strategically wise, political wise, cultural wise, they have been a blessing. We have, with their help, we invited fire, unfriendly fire on our own. We have done away with comprador elites. We have thrown away, without any repressions, the fifth column. We are returning back our Russian culture, our Russian soul. We're becoming Russians. And the only problem with these sanctions and with this war is that we have to pay for it with the lives of our best men. But other than that, they have been a blessing, and I do not want them to be lifted. Of course, some of it should be, so we have no relationship and would earn some additional money. But Russia, which is threatened, is again a war-fighting nation. We are a nation of warriors, and when we started to be attacked, even indirectly, now directly, then we turn to our best, and that's why the country is experiencing unbelievable renaissance. The only problem is that we're losing best men, and that should be stopped.
And that leads to my last question, Mr. Karaganov, which is, you've described this as
at the beginning of the previous millennium, we parted with them, but still, of course, we're Christians, and we're brothers. We are very much an Islamic country, 20% of our population. We also take it from the south. Then we have a strong Buddhist population. We also take it from the southeast. And Judaism is also here an acknowledged religion. And the political system, which we have built over years, we have inherited from the greatest empire of them all, from Genghis Khan Empire. But of course, many Russia would disagree with me, but it is simple truth. We are Asian empire with a very strong European cultural influence, which we love and adore, and we would never part. But we are not Asian, we're not European, thank God. And we are now starting to acknowledge that, because our European journey has been which Peter the Great started for, because of certain reasons, because we're backward in technological terms, is over. It should have been over 150 years ago. It would have saved us from many troubles, including things like world wars, communism, etc. But now we are parting, but hopefully keeping the traits of European cultural heritage which we share with you in our hearts and our minds.
What effect, from your perspective, have
that kind of configuration also means that we will, and we should, and we will, of course, balance the overall preponderance of China vis-a-vis Russia. But at this juncture, China is a fantastic asset. It is not a threat. But just in case, we should create this at least 4-country system. Plus, we are building what we call Greater Eurasia. And that is a system of relationship where China will be balanced by major powers within Eurasia, including India, Persia, Turkey, and Russia, and others. But the Chinese, we talked with them sincerely about necessity to balance them. It is hard for them to solve that, but they're starting to understand that it is in their interest to create a balanced system of relationship within Eurasia. But worldwide, the United States should be a key player, because without the United States, we will not succeed in dealing with the unbelievable problems we are facing in the coming years.
Does Russia jeopardize its soul by leaving the West, given that it's a Orthodox country, its cultural legacy is Western?
No. We are saving our soul. Of course, some of my compatriots would not agree with me, but let us remind you and me and others that our soul came from the east and from the south. We took Christianity from Palestine, and the Orthodox Church is the true Christianity because Catholics left, never respond. Americans would never respond anyway. But I hope the Poles are becoming, by the way, more sensible. They understand that they are playing with fire and they're trying to retreat from the front lines of this conflict. But my choice would be Britain and Germany.
You take out Britain and Germany with nuclear weapons.
I beg our Almighty that wouldn't happen.
Yes.
But Germany should be the first, because Germany is the source of the worst in the European history. But I hope, again, I have many German friends. I hope that it would.
You, I think, just came back from Beijing. Certainly the ties between Russia and China are much, much deeper than they were 4 years ago. From an American perspective, the idea of a permanent Russia-China alliance is a threat to our future, it would seem. Is that alliance permanent?
Well, for the time being, for the foreseeable future, it is a source of great strength both to Russia and to China, and our Chinese friends understand that. But what will happen in 10 to 15 years, we do not know. So we're planning for all kind of futures. But our best solution is to reach a world where four great powers will be working together for defining, the rules of behavior in the future world. These four powers are China, Russia, United States, and India. And use of nuclear weapons against Europe, because otherwise the world would drift into a third world war, towards which Europeans are pushing all of us. They have already done that twice in history, sucking in the United States. You a couple of times saved them, you Americans. We once suffered, but then saved them again. But now they're back, and with the old game, and we have to either to punish them or to help them to change their minds. It is not. I'm not calling for regime change, but if Europeans do not change these elites for more national-oriented, for more responsible, they are doomed. And I hate this idea because culturally I'm a European. Of course, we are moving towards Siberia, we're moving towards East. We're saying and sincerely that we are becoming a Eurasian nation, or returning back to where we belong, to become the Eurasian nation. But the loss of Europe would be a pity.
Before I ask you about what you think Russia should do relative to the rest of the world, become Eurasian rather than European, which it seems to be doing. If there were nuclear strikes from Russia into Europe in the next year or two, as you said there may be, what countries would that include?
Well, we are online, so I have written that several times, that if we strike Poznan, Americans will pay, and that's sooner or later. We have to go after the escalation, and if they do not stop this senseless war and hostility in and around Ukraine, we would have to start to attack Europe with conventional weapons, and then next step will be waves of nuclear strikes. I hope we wouldn't reach that point, because using nuclear weapons, any weapon, is a sin. But using nuclear weapons is a double sin, and I don't want Russia to be that big a sinner. We have all our sins. But if needed, we have to eliminate the European threat to humanity.
How far are we from Russia using nuclear weapons against Europe?
2 years. Now, if they do, well, 1 year. Well, first of all, I've been calling on my government to escalate earlier. But President Putin is very religious, and he's cautious. And we have been climbing up the ladder of escalation, changing our nuclear doctrine and lowering the nuclear threshold, building up our nuclear potential in Europe and else, but in the hope that we could stop them before crossing the threshold. As I've said, I think that Putin believes that using nuclear weapons, and I believe, by the way, is a sin. But it might be a necessary sin in order to save humanity. That's why I have been calling for limited nuclear. The problem of Russia by killing our president. Our president is. I have one problem with our president, is that he's too cautious. They do not too cautious, and he shows too much perseverance. I am criticizing him indirectly, or sometimes even directly, as in our conversation with you. But they simply want. Of course, they could not kill. It's simply noble hatred of people who have lost their minds. Well, the question, of course, of doing away with leaders of foreign countries is an American question. As you know, and, but they are pumping up hatred towards Russia like mad. I'm partly a historian. I must say that even Hitler's Germany, the level of anti-Russian propaganda, Russophobia, was maybe weaker, or at least equal to what is happening in Europe.
What would happen if your president were to be assassinated by the Ukrainians or Europe or the United States? What would be the next?
Well, let's hope that would not happen. But then, of course, that would mean that we will punish, hopefully not the United States, but Europe will be taken away from the map of the humanity. It should be pushed away from the geopolitical and geostrategic map, because it is a nuisance. I hope it would not be punished in the physical way, though I am starting to say that these idiots do not understand anything but physical. I'm not unable to talk to them. I am not able to talk to them because they are, imagine, they are forbidden to talk to us. And if they talk to us, they are then called and summoned to the police or security services. So I have still probably a lot of friends in Europe, but I do not have any contacts with them because they are banned, because they elites from talking to us, because the elites are preparing them for war, at least morally. Though the same elites could not comprehend that if war, a real big war, is unleashed in Europe. And sooner or later, this war in Ukraine, which we are waging with Europeans, escalates. There will be no Europe. Thanks God, we have changed our nuclear doctrine recently. Our president said he was very cautious and he's a very cautious and very polite man, but he said something very important. He said that if Europe continues and if Europe gets into real direct conflict with Europe, there will be nobody in Europe to talk to. But I hope and I beg and I pray the way I pray that he or us wouldn't have to make this decision. But as I've said before, Europe is the source of the most evils and it returns to its worst times.
Twice in the past, roughly the past year, the Ukrainians have at least twice, tried to kill your president, President Putin. That's my read of it. Why do you think they did that? What's the thinking there?
Well, it is very simple. I mean, they're belligerent. I mean, some people believe that you could solve, but most of them.
You are quoted in one place saying they no longer fear God, therefore they no longer fear war. How are those two related?
Absolutely. I mean, they lost, well, not all, again. There are normal people in Europe. Europe has lost its core moral, political, spiritual core. And now as you know, most of them have lost the fear, the trust in God. It doesn't mean, and they lost losing most of their traits of the human. Europe is under this leadership is becoming anti-European in terms of historical European and even anti-human. They have brought Nazism, which was anti-human, etc. Now they have brought to us. You have been infected to a less extent, something absolutely anti-human. Loss of respect towards family, towards love between man and woman, towards respect for seniors, towards patriotism, etc. What is then Europe? And, of course, trust in God. What is left? I mean, it is, it is a moral whole. However, of course, I'm not speaking about all Europeans. There are normal people. However, of course, I'm not for sacrificing new millions of Ukrainians and others. The Russian legendary perseverance will go thin, and we will have to punish them severely, hopefully in a limited sense.
It's interesting that you say their leaders no longer fear nuclear weapons. You would think everyone would fear nuclear weapons given their destructive capacity. Why would any person not fear the threat of a nuclear attack?
Because, let's put this: we believe that they are like us, but they're not like us. They have had a total degradation of thinking class and of the ruling class. I mean, when Chancellor, quote unquote, of Germany is talking about, recreating a Bundeswehr to be the strongest army in Europe. What does that mean? That means that he dooms his country for elimination. I have been talking with Europeans through most of my adult life. I stopped doing that in 1913 when there was a meeting of European leaders in which I participated, and I said that if you continue into this your system, there will be a big war, and millions of Ukrainians will die. And nobody dared to look into my eyes. There were 70 or 80 people. Most of them, they have degraded to the level that they are dangerous idiots or moral idiots.
Yes.
Most, not all of them. And defense, etc., etc. There's only one or two men or persons left. I wouldn't name them because that would jeopardize them in the eyes of the audience. But nobody else. I do not have any interlocutor, almost any interlocutor in Europe anymore.
When you say everyone knows that the Russian government, if pressed, would use nuclear weapons against Europe, you mean that? Is my question. And do you think that the Europeans understand that?
Europeans, because they have been, first of all, intellectually degrading after the 1968 so-called student revolution, which killed most of European education. And because of anti-meritocracy of modern European democratic system, do not understand or are unable to understand what is happening fully. And also they are entertaining what I call strategic parasitism, I don't know how to call it. They believe that war will never come to their territory. They forgot about the war, and that is terrible, because they have been the source of most wars in the history of humanity. But now they are not afraid. So now one of the tasks of Russia, in addition to all others, is to bring them to senses, hopefully without using nuclear weapons, only with the threat of their use. And I'm criticizing my government of being too prudent and too patient with them. But sooner or later, if they continue to support this war, a low level of intellectual capacities in the leadership of most European countries, not of all, but of most.
So Europe is basically out of gas. It's out of energy. It's dying, and so you're arguing that their leadership sees a defeat of Russia as the only way back.
Continuation of they at first they thought of a possibility of a defeat of Russia, which was, kind of a fantastic illusion. And, but still, some people, because of their intellectual quote unquote incapacity, or they are still talking about that. But what is defeat of Russia? Just if Russia comes ever close to a defeat, that would mean that Russia now would use nuclear weapons, and the Europe will be finished physically. So, it's simply impossible even to think about it. But they have been talking because they need a war to rationalize their stay in power, to rationalize their existence. It is not about even defeat of Russia now. It is simply keeping on with the failing European Union, with a failing economy, with failing European positions in the world. Everybody in the world now laughs at Europe, which used to be, by the way, one of the core centers of world power. And now it's a joke. Of course, I'm not speaking of all Europe. We know that there are decent Europeans, there are smart Europeans. Though in my political class of European thinkers, and you're on foreign policy.
I think from an American perspective, it's very obvious that European leaders are focused on Russia in the big countries, Germany, France, Great Britain. The leadership of all three countries is focused on Russia as the threat. Why do you think that is?
No, it is very simple. I mean, I'm a founder of Institute of Europe, and I used to be a Europhile 40 years ago. And then I learned them better, and I became highly skeptical. They are complete failures on all counts. I mean, moral, political, economic, etc. Europe is going down. Also, they are unable now to exploit the world and to suck the rent from the world which they have been getting due to their military preponderance over the last 500 years. And that was stopped in the 60s and 70s, and they got into a deep crisis already. But at that time, I mean, for all kinds of reasons, Soviet Union collapsed. And they believed that their golden age would continue. But now they understand that this golden age is finished. And they are desperate. They understand that they could not live on others' money. Also, they start to understand that they could not live on the cushion of U.S. protection, because U.S. is tired of them and they don't need it anymore. So there's a total desperation of this a layer of globalist, quote-unquote liberal European elites. Also there, by the way, process of anti-meritocracy. I mean, never in the history of Europe have we had such, including now, they have been the main source of the post-human values which they have been exporting. I mean, they partly polluted the United States too. Now we are fighting that. They tried to pollute them, that with them. I'm not speaking about all Europe. I mean, there are many decent people and even good countries there. But the question is that Europe is returning back to where it used to be during the last 500 years. And that is the source of all evil in the history of humanity.
So what does it look like to defeat Europe? The war can't end until Russia defeats Europe, you said. What does that mean?
For the time being, we are thinking about a piecemeal deal, about an armistice, which has been offered by President Trump in good faith. Or again, until the will of European elites is not to continue confrontation for the sake of saving themselves from the all covering up for the all mistakes they have done. That war will not stop. So I'm relatively skeptical as to the short-time possibilities of a piecemeal deal. However, of course, if we achieve something along the road and people will stop to be killed, well, the opportunity should be used. But I'm pretty sure that their problem is much deeper. And it is not Ukraine, it is not Zelensky and whomever. It is that Europe is again returning to its worst. And that is the source of all evil in the history of humanity.
So why do you? because it's entirely real. Here's the interview. Mr. Karaganov, thank you very much for joining us.
That's right.
How do you believe this war will end?
This war could and should be ended not only when Russia achieves total defeat of Europe, hopefully without eliminating Europe. We are fighting not Ukraine, not Zelensky and the like. We are fighting again their Europe, which has been their source of all ills and all sources of evil in the history of humanity, of 2 world wars. Europe has been several times invading us. Last time it was openly in the 41, 45, when 90%, 95% of European countries came here under the banners of Hitler. Now, unbelievably, after all their defeats, they haven't learned the lesson. They're still pushing for a big war. I think, the reason is obviously that it's total failure of modern European elites. But so when we talk about the end of this war, it's not about, doing away with the war in Ukraine, with the source of this war, and that is the evil Europe, which, by the way, sucked United States several times into war, and which have been the source of the worst things in the history of humanity, including, of course, world wars, including racism, colonialism, and many other bad things.
Likely cause chaos. Because in chaos, I can dominate and I can steal. And the people who are paying me to have these views, a lot of them are exiled Russian oligarchs who Putin kicked out, could get back in there and scoop up the resources. There's no reason Putin should control all the bauxite in Russia or whatever, all the oil, all the gas, all the gold. We should. So create chaos in this country, the biggest country on earth with 150 million people and the largest nuclear arsenal, and I'll get rich. And even if you signed up for that program, which you shouldn't because it's disgusting, but let's say you did think that was a good idea, part of your reptile brain would start beeping red, alert, alert, alert. That's really reckless because I can't control what happens next. There are too many nuclear weapons in this country. They have massive military industrial power. They make a lot of weapons. They make a lot of steel. They have a lot of cheap energy. This is a real place. And it's got a huge Muslim population, 20%, and they're kind of peaceful now. Will they be? These are the kind of things an adult would ask himself before calling to knock off a head of state. You could destroy the world. But they haven't asked themselves those things because they don't care. And above all, they are unfit for leadership of the West. And that includes our foreign policy establishment, and it includes virtually every single head of state in Europe. And for that, they are on the cusp of being eliminated. Literally. And I'll just speak for myself and say, I really hope that doesn't happen. Yes, Keir Starmer's a joke. Of course, he's an insult to our ancestors. If you're English, he's an insult to our ancestors and to that nation. Of course, Macron is ridiculous. Germany, ugh. But do you want to see them destroyed? And according to Sergey Karaganov, they're very close to being. So with that, watch this interview and ask yourself, why is this not on the front page of every paper? Why is this not on the lips of every European and every American? So if you're going to be a beacon of freedom, be one and call the just to account and don't punish the innocent, which is why sanctions are not only ineffective, but also immoral. But moreover, if you're waging a war against a country, and we've been at war with Russia for 4 years, despite what the liars tell you, we have been at war with Russia for 4 years. Probably not a good idea to admit that you're losing on television, which is what Lindsey Graham just did. We have no choice but to take him out. And third, it's probably unwise to admit that you know nothing about the country that you are fighting, that you're obsessed with. Taking Putin out will solve the problem? Putin is an absolute dictator. He's dictatorial, that's for sure. You probably wouldn't want to walk by the Kremlin and give him the finger. He'd probably be punished for that. But does he have absolute control over Russia? Does any leader of any country ever have absolute control over the country? Did Stalin? No. He consulted with the constituencies in his country. They all do, every one of them. Our president, every emir in the Gulf, every king, sultan, potentate, head of the CCP. Everyone's got a board of directors in this world. Everyone. And Putin is no different. And Putin, again, like every head of state, is balancing a bunch of different shareholders every single day. You got the FSB and then divisions within the FSB. You got the military, you got the business community, the oligarchs, as we call them. Very different from our oligarchs who are just tech CEOs. They're oligarchs. But everyone's got a piece of this enterprise they call Russia, and everyone gets a say. And no head of state acts unilaterally. So the idea that you take Russia out and everyone just gives up, oh, Putin's gone, we can, I don't know, turn it over to Zelensky, is ridiculous. And only someone who didn't understand how the world works would say something like that. So what's the point? The point is exactly what we've seen in a lot of other countries. Iraq, Syria, you hope not Iran, but